All right, let's talk about the ups and downs of Red Dead 2. I have been wanting to play this game for, close to a decade now, and I'm glad I finally got to it. Here's the deal. Here's the bottom line with a game like this. Playing this, now that I've finally gotten all the way through it, I can see that it is one of the best games of all time, objectively. When I'm looking at it objectively, it is one of the best games of all time. There's just no doubt about it. It is incredibly immersive. I think that's probably the main thing that really makes it incredible. You know that show Westworld, where there's the sci-fi show where they go into a theme park and there's like really lifelike robots and you can pretend to be a outlaw in the Old West or be a hero and save the damsel in distress or, go full evil or whatever. We don't have that in our reality. But this is as close as we have to something like that. It is a Wild West. It's an Old West simulator where you can go in and be good or bad. And you can, you do the missions, but then there's also just random missions where you're just building a fence or you're, taking your son fishing and things like that. It is as close as we have to something like Westworld, where it is a full-on. If you have the imagination to get immersed in it, it is a full-on, and you're interested in the Wild West especially, you can get fully immersed in this game. And the story is one of the best ever. The characters are incredibly nuanced, well-written, deep, flawed characters. I fell in love with several characters in this game, and there's just as many that you just love to hate. They're just very good. Sometimes villains, sometimes it's gray, right? This game is it's a very nuanced story, and I can't think of many games. I can't really think of any games that are clearly better in the story department. So it's just really incredible how immersive it is. I do think it has a couple of things that aren't perfect. But honestly, even most of those seem to be by design. Like, for instance, the combat is very difficult to get used to. It's very different from every other game. It is not easy. It's clunky. It is not natural, and it's very difficult to get used to. I get the sense that that's on purpose. Like, it doesn't want you to be some Call of Duty no-scoping, headshotting master. It's a lot more realistic than that. Shooting at people is difficult. Pulling off a headshot in this game is not easy, at least not at first. I think that's by design. That's one of my least favorite things about the game is the combat, but I understand that it's more a feature than a bug, most likely. It's also I think the only real objective flaw in the game is the UI, especially if you're trying to interact with certain things. Like if you get off of your horse and you need to pick up your hat and you want to check your weapons and there's somebody that you need to talk to, good luck. You are going to have a lot of trouble standing in just the right position that you can do the thing that you want to do. It is even if there's not that much stuff around, just like when Arthur's in his camp and you're trying to shave, a lot of times you're accidentally picking up photographs or inspecting something else, or I'd be like standing right in front of where I know I'm supposed to be and the buttons just don't show up. So I've got to do this weird dance where I turn around in circles and I crouch and then I'm trying to get it where I need to be. And that happened all the time. And it was maddening at points. I think when it comes to actual objective flaws, and the rest of the UI is a little bit clunky, like just going to the map and trying to navigate all the rest of the user interface was clunky, but that also almost feels like it's by design. The only thing that I would consider a bug and not a feature is the way that you have to interact with things. I think I don't want to say. No, I will say it. It feels like it's poorly done. It's not very good, and it's immersion breaking at times. It's very clunky. It's very easy to do the wrong thing. That does not feel like it's by design, and it does feel like an objective flaw of the game. But we're being real nitpicky here. And honestly, that is the only thing I can think of as like an objective flaw. I don't really even see the argument against it being a flaw. The other things like the combat and just the ease of use of the game in general, like how the fast travel works is really clunky too. That feels like it's on purpose. Everything else feels like it's on purpose. This game, outside of that little picky thing with the UI, everything else in this game seems like it's in its perfect place. It is such a tragedy, and it's just it's the closest I'll ever get to feeling like I'm in the Old West. You know, now let me tell you why this game isn't going to rank as high as it deserves. So, just in a nutshell, I think this has a claim for the best video game of all time. I think it has a very solid argument. In fact, I would have a hard time. Like, if I had to guess, I'd say, I don't know, maybe Super Mario Bros. 3 is the best game of all time. But if somebody else said Red Dead 2 is the best game of all time, I would have a real hard time arguing Super Mario Bros. 3 against this game. It's that good. It is objectively, it is about as good as a game can be, and it does all of the wonderful things that we wished video games were doing when I was a kid. You know, it is a wonderful fantasy of a world to live in. It is absolutely mesmerizing. Now, let me tell you why it's not going to rank as high as it deserves. That makes it sound like if it's maybe the best game of all time, that's what, top 5, right? Because I rank every game that I play, and I've beaten 586. Like, let me tell you why it's not probably even going to crack the top 100. It might. But it's not going to crack the top 50. Let me tell you why. There's a few reasons. Number one, I lack the imagination to really get immersed in a game like this. That's something I've understood. I've come to finally understand about myself after beating several hundred video games, is that I don't have enough imagination that, like, the story and the immersion, the immersive factors of a game like this really put me in that place. Because that's when you're playing a game like this, that's when you're having the most fun, right? It's like when you are the outlaw and you're going, maybe you're doing missions, maybe you're just playing poker and drinking whiskey at the bar and getting into some random conversation. All that immersive stuff, it doesn't really play with me the way that it does with a lot of gamers, and so that just doesn't really do it for me to the same degree. The second reason is that I have come to learn about myself that the number one real draw for video games for me is the challenge of it. That's why I love Souls-likes, I love Metroidvanias, I love really tough 2D platformers, survival horror games with a lot of stealth and stuff that's really difficult on harder settings, that kind of thing. I'm playing Evil Within 2 right now on nightmare mode, off recording, like that kind of thing. Those are some of my favorite games because I enjoy the achievement of beating the game. This isn't really about that. The game's not hard. I know I died 60 times, but honestly, most of those, the vast majority of those are just because I made a dumb mistake. You know, I walked too far into a gunfight at one point and I got flanked, or I just didn't get enough headshots in time and I forgot to heal, or I walked off a cliff with my horse, or, you know, whatever, stuff like that. It's not that the game is hard. I never got stuck. This is an easy game, to be honest. It's not, but that's the thing. This isn't about the challenge, right? That's not why this game exists. That's not what really makes it great. I understand that. But at the end of the day, when it comes to my preference, that's what really gets me going. That's the number one thing that really gets me going with a game is the achievement of knowing, like, I beat it. I put my heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears in this thing, and I finally came out victorious. This just isn't about that. But because it's not, it's harder for me to enjoy it to the degree. I still had a blast with it, don't get me wrong, but it's harder for me to enjoy it to the degree that somebody that's really able to get immersed in a world like this would be able to enjoy it. These big open world games with a lot of story and a lot of different characters are great. I enjoy them. Some of my very favorite games have some of that, like Ghost of Tsushima, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Zero Dawn. But all of those three games, God of War Ragnarok, Ghost of Tsushima, and Horizon Zero Dawn, are far more challenging than this game, number one. And number two, when it comes to story, what really gets me going is usually something with a supernatural element. So this is the third issue. Again, it's not an issue with the game. This is a preference thing. But my favorite stories are games like Horizon Zero Dawn, something with a really cool sci-fi bend, or a zombie horror bend, or some kind of cosmic supernatural bend, something like that. So the combination of a challenge and a really supernatural story, like something in God of War Ragnarok, that's why that game's a top 10 game for me. Or Marvel Spider-Man 2, you know, that's going to rank. This isn't going to rank as high as that, even though the story in this game is objectively probably better than both of those. even though those both have incredible stories. It's just not as challenging. This game is probably going to rank similar to games like Skyrim, Fallout 4, stuff like that, because those are games that aren't really about the challenge as much and aren't really about super tight combat. So again, to recap, this is one of the best games I've ever played objectively. I think it has a good argument for being the best video game of all time. It makes me really excited to play GTA 6, which I haven't even played 5 yet. I'm going to play 5 sometime before 6 comes out, but I haven't even played that yet. But like, well, these big open worlds where you can kind of get immersed in the world and do it, they just don't do it for me in the same way as other people. But it is one of the best games of all time, and there's just no denying that. But that being said, I did have a wonderful time with it. But it's time to do one more thing. Red Dead 2, it has been a journey. And I just absolutely adore every person that worked on this game, that poured their hearts and their souls into this game. But we have now seen credits, so we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye! Miss ya. Miss you already.